It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome to the show. You know, fishing derbies, like many things in life, well, they come in all shapes and sizes. On one end of the spectrum, there's the Bassmaster Classic and the FLW Forest Wood Cup for those bass anglers out there. There's walleye tournament circuits, there's catfish tournaments, there's salmon derbies up and down the Pacific coast, there's halibut derbies too. But now, we bring you something very different and very new from the great state of California. It's the San Quentin State Prison First Annual Fishing Derby. That's right, a fishing derby named after the infamous San Quentin State Prison. It's going on this weekend. It's happening actually November 10th, just a few miles north and east of this prison near San Francisco. The good news, the cost is only $40 to enter, and the biggest two stripers and the biggest two sturgeon caught will be taking home cash prizes. So if you're tuning in today on KPAY out of Chico, California, or one of our other California stations, you can head to Alvarez Park and enter. Who knows? You might be a winner. And even if you don't, after the tournament ends at 3:30 p.m., there's going to be a barbecue and a raffle. So enjoy. All right, that's funny. Fishing tournament named after a prison. But you know what? I'd rather see folks fishing than in prison, so God bless them, and I hope everyone participating has fun. Speaking of fishing tournaments, we'll be talking more about those in just a minute, but before we get there, this is Veterans Day weekend, and with that in mind, we're going to be highlighting two special organizations that are all about getting our veterans and service members, especially those that have been injured serving our nation, into the outdoors to fish, to hunt, and most importantly, to heal. One group that does that, working with service members who are still healing up in places like the Walter Reed Medical Center, is Wounded Warrior Outdoors. Based in Florida, this nonprofit group takes combat wounded soldiers, Marines, sailors, and airmen all over North America for some very special fishing and hunting adventures. Ron Rabu, who has been working with this group for years, will join us to explain more and let you know how you can help them keep helping our veterans. Another organization doing similar work is Trinity Oaks. They are based in Texas, south of San Antonio, and they have a special piece of ground there upon which sits the Thumbtack Ranch. It's been recognized by veterans groups like the National Order of the Purple Heart as a place where some very good work is being done on their behalf. And Brittany Longoria, Executive Director of Trinity Oaks, will tell you more about what's going on at this 2,000-acre ranch to help out our wounded veterans. We can spend an hour or more talking about veterans and the groups helping them this weekend, but we've got a few other things to share with you beyond that. One of them is the rollout of some new firearms from Henry Repeating Arms. This is the company that has been making lever-action rifles since the Civil War, and now they've got a great rifle for hunting deer, antelope, and more. It's called the Long Ranger, and Dan Clayton Luce with Henry Arms will join us to share details about this great lever-action rifle. Finally, we've got some sad outdoors news for you about an animal on the endangered species list that we didn't save. That's right, you hear about success stories all the time, but sometimes we lose them. And that's what's happening to the last herd of woodland caribou in the lower 48 states. We'll share this story and how the recovery of another endangered species, wolves, helped accelerate the decline of these antlered gray ghosts of the Northwest. But before we get into all of these stories about our veterans, that new classic lever-action rifle, and caribou, let's get back to tournament fishing. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we're going to check in with Daryl Van Vactor. He is the general manager of Crappie USA. They just had a tournament at Barkley and Kentucky Lakes in Kentucky this past weekend. Daryl, welcome to the show. How did it go?
Thank you, John. I'm proud to be on the show today, and it went fantastic. Had a very good weekend. Had a little rain, a little bit of wind to deal with, but we're used to that on tournament weekend. But, John, we had almost 100 anglers participate with us in this fall event. Had 8 states represented. Caught some really nice crappie out of Barkley and Kentucky Lakes.
Who came out on top, and what did that winning bag look like?
Well, the winning weight this weekend was just over 12 pounds, and actually it was a team from Illinois who won that, a team of Dan Lutka. Dan is from Cartersville, Illinois, and his partner is Steve Hess, and Steve is from Cambria, Illinois. Total weight for the 2 days, it was a Friday and Saturday tournament, was 21.01 pound, and that netted them about $3,700 total.
Nice. Give or take, how many crappie is that for 2 days?
The teams were actually allowed to weigh in 7 fish per day, 7 on Friday and up to 7 on Saturday. So a total of 14 fish for the 2 days.
Wow, that is amazing. And I have a confession to make to you, Daryl. The last bass tournament I fished, we brought in a 5-fish limit that weighed under 12 pounds. So you got some pretty big crappie out Kentucky, Tennessee way. All right.
Well, you know, these guys hone their skills. They're very good at what they do. Many of them travel the country with Crappie USA, fishing our events all over. And, of course, the main goal there is to qualify for that big Cabela's Crappie USA Championship at the end of the year.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Crappie USA. Tell our listeners about this organization and for our weekend crappie anglers that are listening today, how they can get involved.
Certainly, I'd love to, John. We're a family-oriented organization. We have 2 divisions in our tournaments, an amateur division and a pro division. The amateur division is kept sacred for those who are starting out in the competitive crappie fishing world. They don't have to compete against the guys that are more seasoned and have been at this game for a long time. So both divisions have great cash paybacks. Both divisions qualify anglers onto the upscaled events, in this case being the Cabela's Crappie USA Classic in October every year. That classic has a total purse of over $125,000. So all they would need to do is just go to our website at www.crappieusa.com. Check out everything there. There's information on the left side of the homepage as to how they can enter, how they can join the American Crappie Association, which is part of our group, and we would love to have them at upcoming events. Our events in the 19 season are all mentioned there on the website. They'll actually start out the 16th of February down in Alabama and then run through mid-June, finishing up at Lake Carlisle, Illinois. So a full spring, we're somewhere every weekend from the middle of February until June, and so we'd love to have them at any and all events they'd care to fish.
And you intrigued me with the Cabela's Crappie USA Championship. It's going to be at Tennessee's Old Hickory Lake in October of 2019. $100,000 purse. What does the winner get out of that?
The winners on the Pro Division will get a VS 518 Ranger with 150 horse Mercury Minn Kota trolling motors, Humminbird electronics, and it goes on and on. Just a full package valued at something around $50,000. The winners on the amateur side will take home an RT 188 Ranger Mercury package with all the goodies on that as well. That value is somewhere around $27,000, and everything else will just be cold hard cash. We pay back 20% of the field in each division. So if there's 100 boats in each division, then each division would pay back 20 places total. Boats being first place, and then cash being the rest of the field.
Well, I'll tell you what, you have got me wanting to sharpen my crappie fishing skills. And folks, hopefully you want to do the same. And if you want to join this tournament series, just go to CrappieUSA.com. CrappieUSA.com is the place to go to. Sounds like a lot of fun. Whether you're really competitive or whether you're an amateur, there's a place for you on the Crappie USA Tournament Series. Daryl, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offers spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Trolling for big salmon? Then tie on a spoon or spinner from McCombie's Custom Lures. These high-quality, made-in-the-USA lures help you catch more Chinook and coho. Whether you troll an Elite Series spoon, a Champion Glow spoon with a squid skirt, or a 3.5 Mini Colorado spinner, you'll be increasing your chances for a fish on. Look for McCombie's Custom Lures at Sportsman's Warehouse and other quality sporting goods stores on the West Coast and Alaska, or online at McCombie'sCustomLures.com.
I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our show. It's Sportsman's Cove Lodge, and many anglers who have been there will tell you it really is Alaska's best lodge. Sportsman's Cove Lodge sits on a salmon highway full of kings and silvers. There's halibut too, and there are some really big ones. Finally, with decades of experience taking care of customers, Sportsman's Cove Lodge knows how to treat you right from start to finish. Ready to book your trip of a lifetime? Then call Sportsman's Cove Lodge at 800-962-7889. That's 800-962-7889. 800-962-7889 for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight today by visiting backcountryhunters.org or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You're back in with our special Veterans Day weekend edition of America Outdoors Radio. We want to tell you about an organization based in Texas called Trinity Oaks. They're doing a lot for our veterans, and they're doing a lot of good stuff for some other folks too. With us here to tell you more about Trinity Oaks is the Executive Director, Brittany Longoria. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I found out about Trinity Oaks through a press release. Had never heard of the organization before, but the more I dug into the work that you're doing, the more impressed I was. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about Trinity Oaks and the work you do?
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Trinity Oaks is based on the premise that active outdoor participation changes lives. So we use hunting and fishing as a platform to work with veterans, with youth, terminally ill, special needs, and other folks that just don't have access to the great outdoors.
Well, and I was looking at your website. I saw that you had nearly 1,600 youth outdoor adventures last year, 32 dream trips for terminally ill folks, and in 2016, 500 trips for combat and wounded veterans. Last year, 735 trips for combat and wounded veterans. Very, very impressive. What are some of the specific events that you've done for veterans during this past year?
For veterans, we do what's called a hero celebration, and it's our way of giving back and saying thank you for everything that you've done to allow us to have the lives that we live here in the States. So it's essentially an all-expense paid hunting trip. We include different sporting activities such as archery ranges and sporting clays, but then the big deal is that we bring some country music singers out, and they'll just sit around the campfire playing it acoustically and enjoying big steaks and crab legs and just having a grand old time.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Now, this all takes place at the Thumbtack Ranch that's south of San Antonio. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the Thumbtack Ranch is the nation's first Purple Heart Ranch. What does that mean?
The Purple Heart Ranch is a designation just as if you were to maybe see a highway that says such and such Purple Heart Highway. It's a recognition by the National Military Order of the Purple Heart, recognizing an area that gives back to honor veterans.
And folks, in case you don't know what a Purple Heart is, it's the medal that you don't want to get. It's the one you get for being wounded in combat. So I think it's great that this organization has bestowed this honor on the Thumbtack Ranch. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about this 2,000-acre ranch in Texas?
The Thumbtack Ranch is a 2,000-acre sportsman's paradise about an hour and a half south of San Antonio in Batesville, very close to Uvalde. So it's a classic South Texas ranch, big whitetail, exotics, turkey, quail, and we're able to offer it as an opportunity to have hunting and fishing activities available year-round to veterans.
I was looking at a map of the ranch, and it's really interesting how it's laid out. You've got different blinds and different setups for different types of hunting down there. You've got different ranges down there. You've got lots of places for people to meet, people to stay. Was this an existing ranch to begin with, or was this built from the ground up by Trinity Oaks?
It was an existing ranch that we purchased. We purchased it last year, and so we're still in the process of fundraising for paying it off. We have a remaining balance of $3.4 million left on it, and all of the work that we've done is to take everything and to make it handicap accessible.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're talking to Brittany Longoria. She's the executive director of Trinity Oaks. It's an organization that gets people outdoors to hunt and fish, specifically combat and wounded veterans, along with terminally ill children and youth as well. But this being Veterans Day weekend, we're focusing on the vets. I want to ask you about some of your favorite stories, some of your favorite events that have occurred since you've been with the organization. And why don't we start off with one of these, celebration events that really stands out for you that honored our veterans?
Absolutely. I mean, every single one is a different, unique experience. Sometimes we do all women vets, sometimes all men, but generally we combine different generations and different combat experiences, different branches of military. So one that stands out in my mind was an opportunity where we had several Korean War veterans with more of the modern Afghanistan current conflicts. And it was very interesting dynamic. At first, everyone was kind of feeling each other out and kind of quiet and more introverted. And as the progression of hunting days and days around or evenings around the campfire, you could see people start opening up. And I know from older generations that those folks never had the opportunity or the cultural acceptance to openly talk about their experiences. So it gave a platform that they could start talking about what happened to them in the field and then share with them how they modified their civilian life to accommodate what they had experienced and how they were still successful in marriages, in their profession, in government, different applications of their talents. And it was neat because their life experiences were able to inspire the younger generations. And they were able to play off of each other as far as, wow, I can still do something. I can still have a family. I can still get out there and start this business and this dream that I have inside. So I'd say that that's probably one of the biggest things is just being able to see people open up and feel appreciated and feel like they can continue on.
So, Brittany, obviously you've got all these people that are hunting down there. They're harvesting hogs, they're harvesting deer, they're harvesting quail. You're eating some of the meat, but what are you doing with the rest of the meat?
That's a great question. We have a major meat processing and distribution element to Trinity Oaks, where we process and distribute over 100,000 pounds of meat annually. So that equates to more than 500,000 meals that gets distributed throughout Texas.
So are these going through local food banks, or are they going somewhere else?
All of the above. It's going to food banks, it's going to soup kitchens, battered women's homes, orphanages.
This is absolutely fantastic. When it comes to the Thumbtack Ranch, you mentioned you're in the middle of a fundraising drive here. What are you going to do with the money that you're going to be getting? Is this just to purchase the ranch itself and keep the existing facilities, or do you have some other improvements planned?
It would be both. It would be initially to pay off the note, but then also to continue with the improvements. So we've gone in and put a bentonite layer into the fishing tank, so water stays year-round, even in the hot Texas summer, and develop more areas for bird hunting. So we're working with the Quail Coalition to develop different areas for game bird habitat. We're working with Safari Club International Foundation to develop handicap accessible hunting blinds there's different opportunities throughout the ranch to just continually improving it, but also continually maintaining it. It's a huge process and a huge property.
Well, it sounds like you are doing some great work down there. God bless you for doing it. If folks want to find out more about Trinity Oaks and the Thumbtack Ranch, whether it be to just check it out, whether it be to donate to help you out, or if there's veterans out there listening for one of these trips, what's the website they should go to?
TrinityOaks.org.
That's trinityoaks.org. That is the website to go to find out more about this great organization doing great work for our veterans, especially combat wounded veterans, and a lot of other people in need as well. Brittany, thanks for sharing this with us during this Veterans Day special edition of America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you so much.
They were our brothers, our sisters, sons and daughters. They were our parents, family, our neighbors, and our friends. How can we express the gratitude that we all owe the thousands and thousands of American veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country's freedom? It was they who stepped forward from the time this country was created to fight for everything we know about liberty and freedom. And although we celebrate their victories and console them for their losses by creating monuments and honoring them in parades, the truth is we can never do enough for the freedom they've given us. Perhaps the most important thing we can do is reach out to those veterans closest to us and simply tell them, thank you. Thank you for all you've done for freedom. All of us at Shiloh Inns would like to take this opportunity to recognize the many men and women who have served and continue to serve our country so that we will always be free. Thank you, veterans, from everybody at Shiloh Inns.
Welcome back to this special Veterans Day weekend edition of America Outdoors Radio. We've got Ron Rabu on the line. He's with Wounded Warrior Outdoors. Great organization helping our combat wounded soldiers and veterans. They're based in Florida. Ron, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
Ron, why don't you tell our listeners who have not heard about Wounded Warrior Outdoors before a little bit about your group?
All right, WWO is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're fully volunteer, so there's never been a single cent spent in any form of contribution or compensation to staff. We're celebrating our 12th year this year, our 10th as a 501c3.
And the work you do is a little bit different than a lot of other groups. A lot of groups will work with veterans who have separated from service, but you're actually working with service members who are injured and still in the service, aren't you?
Yes, but we kind of work with both right now because we've been in it so long. We've worked not only with recently wounded combat warriors, servicemen and women, but also those that have been through our program over the last 12 years and in kind of a need of reconnection now, reconnecting with their brothers and sisters that share the same struggles and challenges that they do.
You've been doing this 12 years. I mean, you and I have been talking now for several years about this, but I still think of you as a brand new, fresh organization.
Yeah, no, we're not. And, because of the nature of the injuries we're dealing with and the sometimes elite level of the warriors we serve, we try our best to fly under the radar. We don't advertise or solicit, so a lot of people don't know we exist.
Well, I think they're going to know a little bit more about your existence when they see a video that you're releasing on Veterans Day about our wounded warriors and their love for our country. It is an amazingly moving video. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can see it?
The best place to see it will be on the Wounded Warrior Outdoors Facebook page, which we will release the video on November 11th. And the video is actually an idea of some of our alumni warriors, the warriors that you'll see in the video. The main focus of that video is, again, not to solicit donations or anything like that. It's really to reach warriors struggling and suffering in silence out there and kind of motivate them to get back involved and back in the outdoors.
The warriors you have featured in this video, some would look at them and say they are not whole because they don't have necessarily their arms or their legs. Though listening to them, and their pride for country and their own self-esteem, I personally think they're more whole than many people I know. But the physical injuries aside, I think you touched on something there. You know, our veterans, our combat veterans who are fighting these battles alone, because PTSD is a real issue, and getting through those psychological barriers to get them to reach out, that's not easy, is it?
It's not easy, and there's a thin line between recruitment and exploitation. And the best people to recruit warriors to come forward and participate are their brothers and sisters themselves, because they've been through our program and they have the trust in us that we're there for the right reason. And the right reason are the warriors we serve, because as you mentioned, we've been doing this for 12 years now, and we've hosted almost 2,000 wounded warriors on our outdoor adventures, and the visible injuries are recognized, but it's the invisible injuries that are sometimes the most devastating.
Amen to that. Well, let's talk about some of the trips that you took Wounded Warriors out on this year. What were some of the more memorable ones? What were some of the big ones?
Well, we kind of go to the same destinations every year, and I'll tell you the mindset to that, because we're conscious of every dollar that is generously donated to us to make our trips possible for the warriors. So we fully equip each destination with everything possible that we may need to be used year after year. So we don't necessarily bounce around, because that wouldn't be cost effective. And we go back to the same destinations year in and year out. So we did trips to Texas, several trips to Florida, to Kentucky, to Alaska, to British Columbia, to Montana, and Georgia. So we bounce around quite a bit.
They may be the same places to you and your support staff and the outfitters and the lodge owners, but they're new to the veterans, because it's a new trip for each one of them. What were some of the different hunts? What were some of the different fishing adventures they got to enjoy at these places? We do an extremely remote fly fishing adventure. Actually, we did back-to-back. We did 2 weeks in Alaska this year at Hoodoo Sport Fishing Lodge, which has got to be undeniably the best fly fishing in the world. I mean, I just can't imagine it's any better. We go in early August when all 5 species of salmon are in the river at the same time, so it's possible for a warrior that's never fly fished before to catch the Grand Slam of salmon all on the same day, which is pretty remarkable. Yes, it is.
We do a spring bear hunt in British Columbia, which is always eventful for the guys, and we do gator hunts in Florida, as well as hog hunts in Florida and deer hunts in Texas. You're right that they are old hat trips to us, but they are new to the warriors, because most likely every year about 65 to 70% of the warriors we host have never hunted or fished before. So that's pretty remarkable that we get to introduce them to the outdoors.
You know, that's really interesting to me, Ron. All these years that we've talked, I've always assumed that, your demographic, so to speak, were wounded warriors who had fished and hunted before they were wounded. So it's surprising to me that the majority have never done this before, and you're introducing them to, the therapy that you and I know that we get from fishing and hunting. That's amazing.
Yeah, we introduce them, and because you got to go back to the premise or the foundation of WWO. It's not to provide hunting and fishing trips. It's to provide therapy and challenge to the recently wounded warriors. We want them to rediscover abilities they thought were lost on distant battlefields. So the hospitals kind of put it into perspective for me at one time. If you look at a wounded warrior in today's medical facilities in the United States, they get about 45 minutes to an hour of physical therapy a day. So that's only 5 hours in a week. No physical therapy is given over the weekend. On a given day in the field, as you well know, hunting or fishing, we're in the outdoors 8 to 10 hours. So one day in the outdoors is a therapeutic equivalent of 2 weeks in the hospital. And when you do that over an 8 to 10 day period of time, our warriors can make tremendous advances.
Well, Ron, I know you're actually out on a trip right now in Kentucky. Tell me about that one.
Well, it's an annual deer hunt. It starts this coming Saturday, and the purpose of the hunt is actually to harvest does, because what we do is we go into certain lands. In this case, it's a ranch that I own, and we harvest surplus animals, process that meat, and then use it throughout the year on our hunts. So hopefully, if it all goes well over the next week, we'll kill 30 or 40 does, which will provide a lot of the meat that we use for the next year.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. I know you're going to do it all again in 2019, but as lean as you are as an organization, you still need financial help. I know you've got a fundraiser coming up in January in Florida. Tell our listeners more about that.
We do 3 3 annual fundraisers. The next one is in Florida. I believe it's January the 26th this year. It's called Cocktails for a Cause, and it's been hosted by the University Club of Orlando for the last nine years. And it's basically a silent auction with some live auction items, and really all we ask for is suitable donation auction items that can be used to generate funding. What we do that night largely determines what we're able to do for the Warriors throughout the year.
And what are the other 2 fundraisers?
We just completed one in Texas. It's a shooting event silent auction that takes place at the end of September in San Antonio. And then we're the Wounded Warrior partner of the Wild Sheep Foundation, and we do part of their fundraiser at their national convention in Reno in February of next year.
Well, folks, hopefully you can make one of these events and support Wounded Warrior Outdoors. But if you can't, don't worry. You can go online and do it right now. The website to do so, and there's a donate button right there, is woundedwarrioroutdoors.com. That's woundedwarrioroutdoors.com. Find out more about this great organization helping our combat wounded soldiers and veterans. And just go to the donate button that's on the top of the page. Follow the instructions. Donate now to help them out. Ron, thank you for the work you and your fellow volunteers do to help our veterans. It is appreciated.
John, I appreciate your support over the last few years and look forward to the brief Veterans Day conversation every year.
They were our brothers, our sisters, sons, and daughters. They were our parents, family, neighbors, and our friends. How can we express the gratitude that we all owe the thousands and thousands of American veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country's freedom? It was they who stepped forward from the time this country was created to fight for everything we know about liberty and freedom. And although we celebrate their victories and console them for their losses by creating monuments and honoring them in parades, the truth is we can never do enough for the freedom they've given us. Perhaps the most important thing that we can do is reach out to those veterans closest to us and simply tell them thank you. All of us at Shiloh Inns would like to take this opportunity to recognize the many men and women, including police and firemen, who have served and continue to serve our country to ensure our freedom. From everyone at Shiloh Inns, thank you, and God bless America.
I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our show. It's Sportsman's Cove Lodge, and many anglers who have been there will tell you it really is Alaska's best lodge. Sportsman's Cove Lodge sits on a salmon highway full of kings and silvers. There's halibut too, and there are some really big ones. Finally, with decades of experience taking care of customers, Sportsman's Cove Lodge knows how to treat you right from start to finish. Ready to book your trip of a lifetime? Then call Sportsman's Cove Lodge at 800-962-7889. That's 800-962-7889. 800-962-7889 for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Trolling for big salmon? Then tie on a spoon or spinner from McCombie's Custom Lures. These high-quality, made-in-the-USA lures help you catch more Chinook and coho. Whether you troll an Elite Series spoon, a Champion Glow spoon with a squid skirt, or a 3.5 Mini Colorado spinner, you'll be increasing your chances for a fish on. Look for McCombie's Custom Lures at Sportsman's Warehouse and other quality sporting goods stores on the West Coast and Alaska, or online at McCombie'sCustomLures.com.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Cruz through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of wild public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight by visiting www.backcountryhunters.org and join the 25,000 men and women who have pledged to defend wildlife and public access. You can also demonstrate your support by signing up for the 2019 North American Rendezvous in Boise, Idaho, May 1st to the 5th.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've got some outdoors news for you, and we're starting off not with a success story, but a story about a failure of our Endangered Species Act. We've had a lot of great comebacks over the last few decades, to include the bald eagle, the peregrine falcon, the grizzly bear, and the wolf. But we dropped the ball when it came to the southern resident herd of Selkirk caribou that live along the combined border of Idaho, Washington, and British Columbia. Some of our listeners in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, may have seen some of these animals nicknamed gray ghost. These animals don't live on the tundra, but in the forests and the mountains found in this region around northeast Washington and the far north panhandle of Idaho. Unfortunately, a series of events well documented in recent articles by Eli Frankovich of the Spokesman Review have resulted in the demise of this subspecies. It started with the destruction of their habitat through years of logging. It got worse when those logging roads became accessible to snowmobilers who drove through the caribou's habitat during the winter months, disturbing them when their energy was low and their food sources were low too. You can throw in climate change as an issue as well. A series of dry and warm winters in recent years left little snow on the ground and left these caribou vulnerable to predators they could normally outpace in deep snow. The main predator, the Canadian gray wolf, which has made quite a comeback in the western U.S. and who found these caribou easy prey, as did the mountain lions that roam this area in very good numbers too. In 2009, there were 46 woodland caribou roaming back and forth across the border of Canada and the U.S. 5 years later, there were only 18, and it was only then authorities in British Columbia took action, killing wolves with sharpshooters and helicopters in an attempt to save the caribou. As for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and state agencies in Idaho and Washington, no real attempts were made to save the Selkirk herd. And what efforts were made were too little, too late. This fall, there are only 6 caribou left in this herd, and they've been captured and taken to a captivity pen in British Columbia in hopes the genetic essence of this species can be saved, and in the future, these animals can be reintroduced into this country that simply became too harsh for them to survive in because of the short-sighted actions of man, the inaction of government, and the appetite of abundant wolves and cougars. Bottom line, we need to do better, much better, and let this requiem for the southern resident Selkirk herd of mountain caribou, the last caribou in the lower 48 states, be a reminder for us to do so. Next up on America Outdoors Radio, I don't know about you, but I grew up watching Westerns as a kid, and the hero always had a lever-action rifle. And there's a good chance that lever-action rifle was a Henry rifle. They've been around since the Civil War, and they're still around today. Not only does Henry Repeating Arms still make their firearms in the USA, they've now got a new rifle made specifically for hunting. With us here to tell you more about it is Dan Clayton Luce with Henry Repeating Arms. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Dan, the Long Ranger rifle for hunting. Again, when I think of Henry Repeating Arms in the 21st century, I usually think of them for target shooting and cowboy action shooting, but the Long Range Ranger rifle, this is definitely made for the field, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's true that we make a ton of firearms for, the range, backyard planking, collecting, cowboy action shooting, like you said, but hunting has become such a huge focus for us in the past few years. We started making our first steel 30-30 and 45-70 lever actions from our Rice Lake, Wisconsin facility in 2014, and it just took off from there once we saw the response that we were getting from those. I think for a while we had a reputation as being a safe, clean company, so to speak. People see the shiny brass and they say, oh, there's no way I'd ever shoot that. I'm just going to keep it in the safe for collecting. And while we do have a lot that fits that role, we've been working very hard. The engineers have been working very hard to grow the more utilitarian side of our company. I just think there's something so iconic and American about getting into the deer woods with a lever action rifle. So that's something we're really trying to focus on lately.
Well, I've got to tell you, I was actually down at the local sporting goods store this weekend, and they had some Henry rifles. And, of course, they started off with the Golden Boy 22, and what a beautiful rifle that is. But then I got to get my hands on a couple of those long-range rifles. I love the feel. I love the heft. Not too heavy, but heavy enough. Just great looking, great feeling firearm. But what I want to talk about now are the calibers you pick for the long-range rifles and why.
So currently the Long Ranger is available in 223, 243, and 308. So as far as rifle cartridges go, those are probably some of the most popular cartridges out there, but they won't work in a lever action rifle with a tubular magazine like we use on pretty much all of our other rifles due to the pointed bullet shape. So when we were designing the Long Ranger, which uses a removable box magazine, it just made sense for us to start with those 3 core cartridges, I guess. They're readily available. And, that trio is very versatile in a hunting sense and can cover smaller varmint game up to large game with the 308. And, I can't really get into specifics, but we do have plans to introduce some other calibers down the line now that we have a solid foundation to build on with the Long Ranger platform.
Oh, well, it sounds exciting to me. Again, that 223, perfect for coyotes, perfect for fox. The 243, great for white-tailed deer, also fantastic for antelope. And that 308, like you said, that'll take down anything from big game to white-tailed deer. These are some really good choices. I like it a lot. One other thing is the fact that in addition to the original Long Ranger, which is definitely looks like and is a hunting rifle, you've got some really nice looking Long Rangers too that maybe collectors are going to want to have. Tell our listeners about those.
Yeah, so the new additions we just came out with, we probably announced those about a week or 2 weeks ago. They really are beautiful rifles geared more towards the collector, but they definitely have a hunting heritage since they're built on the same platform as our initial Long Ranger release. So these new editions, they consist of the deluxe engraved editions and the wildlife engraved edition. The receivers, instead of the kind of matte anodized finish, they are nickel plated and then engraved and then embellished on top of that with a 24 karat gold plating to make the engravings pop a little bit more and give it more contrast.
Wow.
The deluxe engraved editions have some really nice scroll work engraving on them. It's a classic look. And the wildlife editions pay homage to the game that these rifles commonly pursue. So to give you an example, the 223 wildlife edition depicts coyotes on the receiver, exactly like you said, that it's good for. The 243 shows pronghorn antelope, and the 308 shows some elk. And I actually took one to an event down in Georgia before we released these. And this was an event where, there are belt-fed machine guns and, gold-plated full auto AKs and everything like that. And it was so awesome to see people walk by our table and then do a double take on that rifle and come back and spend, their time on the range with this rifle. I think once you see one in person, it really looks so much better in person than anything we can show on the website or in a video or anything like that. So I, highly suggest people go try and track one of these down.
And folks, you can find rifles made by Henry Repeating Arms at all of the major sporting goods dealers, whether it be Cabela's or Sportsman's Warehouse or Bass Pro Shops. You can find them at quality sporting goods stores throughout the nation, and you can find them online at henryusa.com. If you're going to the sports shows this year, if you're going to the Rocky Mountain Elk event in Las Vegas in December, where they have the Cowboy Show and the Christmas Show for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, look for Henry Arms there. You can also find them at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in early 2019. And again, look for them at a sporting goods store near you. And this, by the way, if you haven't figured it out, perfect Christmas gift for the collector or hunter in your life. It's the Long Ranger rifle made by Henry Repeating Arms, made right here in the USA. Check it out. Buy one for Christmas. You're going to make somebody really happy. Dan, thanks for telling us about this today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you so much.
We've got to go, but if you didn't catch our whole show, you can always catch us on demand on Stitcher, on Podbean, or on YouTube. Look for America Outdoors Radio, and don't forget to catch our show Saturday mornings online on talkamericaradio.us. Until we chat again, I do hope you are blessed in the week ahead, and do remember, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
More habitat equals more wildlife. Pheasants Forever is working hard every day to ensure there's more wildlife habitat for the future. Join the habitat leader and help create wildlife habitat in your community. To join us, go to pheasantsforever.org.